Here's something most people don't realize. By early 1943, Germany had already lost the war. The math simply didn't work anymore, but nobody told the soldiers, and for the next 2 years, millions of men kept fighting, kept dying, kept believing in miracle weapons and final victories that were never coming. Tonight we're following one of them. Oh, before I forget. Someone from Chicago commented last time saying it was 2 a.m. there. Then someone from London said good morning. Still kind of blows my mind that you're all listening at the same time from completely different places. Anyway, if you're new, stick around. So, February 1943, the Eastern Front, and I should warn you, this one gets heavy, not in a way that'll keep you up, just real, you know. Now, picture this. You're a German soldier named Wilhelm, 22 years old, and you're waking up to the sound of artillery in the distance, not close enough to kill you, not yet, but close enough that the frozen ground beneath your back trembles with each impact. You've been sleeping in what used to be a farmhouse. What's left of it anyway? The roof is mostly gone. Half the walls have been reduced to rubble. But the cellar where you've been huddled with 11 other men is still intact. Mostly. The blanket wrapped around you is stiff with frost. Your boots. You slept in your boots because taking them off means frostbite, and frostbite means amputation, and amputation means you're done. Your breath comes out in white clouds that hang in the darkness before slowly dissipating. Someone coughs, the wet rattling kind that means either bronchitis or worse. Tuberculosis has been making its way through the ranks like a whisper nobody wants to acknowledge. Men disappearing to field hospitals that are really just collection points for the dying. This is February 1943. 2 weeks ago, the Sixth Army surrendered at Stalingrad. 91,000 German soldiers marched into Soviet captivity. Most of them won't survive the camps. The official radio broadcast called it a sacrifice, a heroic struggle. But you know what it really was? You heard the truth from the men who managed to escape the encirclement before it closed. The truth about soldiers eating horses, then rats, then things nobody wants to mention. 300,000 Germans went into Stalingrad. 91,000 came out as prisoners. The math on that is about 200,000 dead in a single city, in a single winter. And the thing is, you can't process that. Not really. Numbers that large stop meaning anything. Your brain refuses to visualize 200,000 corpses. So instead you think about Hans from your training platoon who was sent to the Sixth Army last autumn. You think about whether he's among the dead or the captured, or if by some miracle he's somewhere warm right now. You don't know. You'll probably never know. The man next to you shifts. His name is Eric, 34 years old, former accountant from Hamburg. Before the war, he spent his days calculating taxes and his evenings listening to jazz records with his wife. Now he spends his days calculating ammunition ratios and his nights trying not to scream in his sleep. You're on your pillow right now, safe, warm, maybe a glass of water on your nightstand. Take a second to notice that. The contrast between where you are and where Wilhelm is. Different worlds, different realities. The cellar smells like unwashed men and wet wool and something else. Something medical. Gangrene, probably. One of the replacements took shrapnel to his leg 3 days ago, and the wound isn't healing right. The medic did what he could, but supplies are low. Everything is low. Food, ammunition, hope. Here's what they don't tell you about the Eastern Front in 1943. They don't tell you about the cold that seeps into your bones until you can't remember what warmth feels like. -30 degrees, -40 on bad nights. Your rifle freezes. The oil in the mechanisms turns to glue. You have to piss on the bolt just to get it working. And yes, that's real. That happened. Soldiers urinating on their weapons because it was the only way to generate enough heat to make them fire. They don't tell you about the food situation. Officially, your ration is supposed to include bread and sausage and ersatz coffee. In reality, you're getting whatever the supply trucks can make it through with, which lately hasn't been much. The main road got bombed again, or maybe it was partisans. Hard to tell anymore. Either way, the result is the same. Empty bellies, weak men, soldiers sharing a single tin of meat between 4 of them and pretending it's enough. The offensive in the Caucasus failed. Operation Blue, the big push for the oil fields at Baku. Germany needed that oil, desperately. The tanks drink fuel like it's going out of style. The trucks, the planes, everything runs on petroleum, and Germany has been running on empty for months. The plan was to seize the Soviet oil fields and solve the problem. Instead, the army got bogged down, overextended, supply lines stretching like taffy until they snapped. And then Stalingrad happened. You hear footsteps on the stairs, heavy boots, someone descending into the cellar. The silhouette of Feldwebel Kraus appears in the doorway. He's 47, a veteran of the last war. The one they used to call the Great War before this one made it look like a warm-up act. Wake up. His voice is flat, dead. We're moving in 30 minutes. Nobody asks where. Nobody asks why. These days, orders come down from somewhere above and you follow them because the alternative is a firing squad for desertion. The High Command in Berlin has made that very clear. No retreats without explicit permission. Hold your ground or die trying. And plenty have died trying. You pull yourself up. Every joint in your body protests. 22 years old and you move like your grandfather used to move. The war ages you, faster than you'd think possible. Men who arrived at the front 6 months ago looking like boys now have the eyes of old men. Hollow, distant, like they've already seen the end of everything and are just waiting for their bodies to catch up. The thing about this moment in the war, February 43, this is when the crack started showing, not just in the front lines but in the whole edifice, the whole system, everything Germany had built since 33, the 1,000-year Reich that was supposed to last forever. Barely a decade in, and already it was starting to crumble. 2 days ago, Joseph Goebbels gave a speech in Berlin, the Sportpalast. Thousands of people packed into that hall to hear the propaganda minister explain why everything that was happening was actually fine, actually part of the plan, actually a reason for even greater sacrifice. Total war. That was his message. Do you want total war? And the crowd screamed yes. Thousands of voices shouting their approval for a concept that basically meant everyone and everything would now be dedicated to the war effort. No exceptions, no civilian life, just war. Total, absolute war. You didn't hear the speech yourself, obviously. You were here, in this frozen hellscape, watching rats gnaw at corpses that nobody has the energy to bury. But you heard about it. Word travels, even here. 15,000 people in that hall apparently rose to their feet, cheering, applauding, demanding more sacrifice, more death, more war. You wonder if any of them have ever seen what a man looks like after a Katyusha rocket turns him inside out. You wonder if they've ever heard the sound a soldier makes when frostbite takes his feet and he realizes he'll never walk again. You wonder if they'd still be cheering then. Probably not. But that's the thing about propaganda. It works best on people who haven't seen the truth yet. Once you've seen it, once you've lived it, All those speeches and slogans and promises start sounding like what they are. Lies told by men in warm offices to men dying in frozen fields. Outside the cellar, the sky is that particular shade of grey that means more snow is coming. The landscape is flat, endless, white in every direction until the whiteness fades into a haze that might be fog or might just be the point where the world stops rendering properly. Like a video game that hasn't loaded the distant textures yet. There's a burned-out T-34 about 200 meters to the east. You killed the crew 3 days ago when they tried to flank your position. 3 men. Boys, really. Probably the same age as you. They're still in there. Frozen solid by now. Nobody bothered to pull them out. What would be the point? The irony is that a year ago, just 1 year ago, everything seemed possible. The army had reached the gates of Moscow, the Volga, the Caucasus, the swastika flew over half of Europe, North Africa, the Balkans, France, Poland, Denmark, Norway. The map of German conquest looked like something from a fever dream of empire. The Allies tried to raid the French coast at Dieppe back in August. Thousands of Canadian soldiers, supposed to be a test for a future invasion. The Germans slaughtered them on the beaches, threw them back into the sea like it was nothing. For a while it seemed like the Reich really was invincible, like maybe the propaganda was actually true, and now look at it. The retreat from the Caucasus is ongoing. Hundreds of thousands of men pulling back through mud and snow, leaving behind the oil fields they were supposed to capture, leaving behind tanks and trucks and equipment that there's no fuel to move anymore, leaving behind the dead in graves that nobody marked because there wasn't time. Your unit is part of Army Group South, or what's left of it. The mission keeps changing. Hold this position, fall back to that one, reinforce this sector. Nobody seems to have a plan anymore. Not a real one, just reactions, improvisation, scrambling to plug holes in a dam that's already broken. 30 minutes, Kraus said. That means packing up whatever gear you can carry. That means checking your rifle. Again. Making sure it'll actually fire when you need it to. That means eating whatever's left of your rations because you don't know when you'll get more. Eric is stuffing something into his pack. A photograph wrapped in cloth. His wife, probably. Maybe his children. He doesn't talk about them much. Too painful, maybe. Or maybe he's protecting them somehow by not speaking their names in this place. As if acknowledging their existence might draw the attention of whatever malevolent force is driving this whole catastrophe. The man with the infected leg. Udo, his name is. He's not getting up. His face is the colour of old cheese. Waxy. Slick with sweat despite the cold. The gangrene has spread. You can smell it even from across the cellar. That sweet, rotting smell that means tissue dying, cells surrendering. He's staying, Kraus says. Someone's coming for him. Everyone knows what that means. Someone coming for him means a stretcher bearer if he's lucky, a bullet if he's not. The army can't afford to carry men who can't walk. Not anymore. There used to be standards, protocols, medical care that actually cared about keeping soldiers alive. Now it's triage on a civilizational scale. Everyone prioritized by their usefulness. Dead weight gets cut. Udo doesn't protest. Doesn't beg. He just lies there staring at the ceiling with those empty eyes that seem to have accepted what's coming. Maybe he's relieved. A lot of men reach that point. The point where dying seems easier than continuing. You don't say goodbye. Nobody does. What would you say? Outside. The cold hits you like a physical force, like walking into a wall made of ice. Your lungs burn with each breath. The moisture in your nostrils freezes almost instantly. Your exposed skin, what little there is, immediately starts to sting. 11 men file out of the cellar and into the snow, Feldwebel Kraus in the lead, then you, then Eric, then the others, names you've learned and forgotten and learned again. Men who were strangers 6 months ago and are now closer to you than family. Men who have seen you cry and scream and vomit and somehow still treat you like a human being. This is your war. This is the Eastern Front in February 1943. 2 years into an invasion that was supposed to take 6 weeks. 2 years of fighting an enemy that simply refuses to die no matter how many you kill. 2 years of watching friends disappear into the white void of Russia and never come back. Somewhere to the west, 1,000 kilometers away. Hitler sits in his headquarters and moves little pins around a map, making plans, issuing orders, convinced that if he just pushes hard enough, sacrifices enough men, the whole thing will turn around. It won't. But you don't know that yet. Nobody does. Not for sure, anyway. There's still hope in February 43. Desperate. Irrational. But hope nonetheless. The new tanks they're building, the Tiger, the Panther, they'll change everything. The wonder weapons, the secret projects. Any day now they'll unveil something that turns the tide. That's what they keep telling you anyway. The column moves out, single file, weapons ready. Every man watching a different sector because snipers are everywhere, and you never know when a white-clad figure will pop up from a snowdrift and start shooting. "Where are we going?" Eric asks. He's next to you now, his voice barely a whisper. Eastkraus says without turning around, reinforcing something or other. East, toward the enemy, away from home, deeper into the frozen nightmare that has swallowed so many before you, the direction nobody wants to go, the direction that leads to places like Stalingrad. You adjust your grip on your rifle, put one foot in front of the other, watch the back of the man ahead of you, and try not to think about anything beyond the next step. This is survival. This is what it looks like. Not heroics, not glory. Just putting one frozen boot in front of the other and hoping the artillery misses and the snipers miss, and the cold doesn't kill you before the enemy gets a chance. And somewhere in Berlin, in a warm hall full of cheering civilians, Goebbels is asking if they want total war. Yes, they scream. Yes, they want it. They want it without knowing what it means, without understanding the cost. You could tell them, you've seen the receipts, but nobody's asking you. The column disappears into the white, 11 figures growing smaller and smaller until they're just dark specks against the endless snow, heading east, toward the war that won't end, toward the death that's waiting for so many of them, toward the final chapter of something that should have ended long ago, but somehow just keeps going, and going, and going. 5 months pass, and somehow you're still alive. It's July now, 1943. And the cold that nearly killed you in February has been replaced by something almost worse. Heat. The kind that sits on your chest like a weight. The kind that makes the air shimmer and dance over the flat Russian steppe until you can't tell what's real and what's mirage. 40 degrees. That's what someone said. 40 degrees Celsius, which for the Americans listening is about 104 Fahrenheit. Either way, it's obscene. You're sweating through your uniform before the sun even clears the horizon. By midday, your tunic is soaked. By evening, you smell like something that crawled out of a swamp and died. Wilhelm, that's still you. Still 22, though you feel about 50 now. You've been moved around so much in the last few months that you've lost track of where exactly you are. Somewhere near a city called Kursk, Soviet territory, a bulge in the front line that looks like a tumour on the map. High Command wants to cut it out. They're calling it Operation Citadel. The big summer offensive, the one that's supposed to turn everything around. You've heard that before. Eric is still with you, the accountant from Hamburg. He's thinner now. They all are. 5 months of war rations will do that to a man. His cheeks have gone hollow, and his eyes have this permanent squint like he's always looking into bright light even when he's not, but he's alive. Which puts him ahead of about 40% of the men who started the year in your unit. The replacements keep coming. Kids mostly. 18, 19, fresh from training camps in Germany, where they learn to march in straight lines and salute properly. None of that helps much when a Soviet shell lands 3 meters away and turns your squad leader into a red mist. They learn fast, though. The ones who survive the first week anyway. Here's what Command isn't telling you. The Soviets know you're coming. They've known for months. British intelligence cracked the German codes ages ago, and they've been feeding information to Moscow like it's a buffet. Every plan, every troop movement, every delay while the factories back home tried to churn out enough of those new Panther tanks that were supposed to change everything. The Panthers. God, don't get me started on the Panthers. On paper, they're incredible. Sloped armour, high-velocity gun, fast, manoeuvrable. The answer to the Soviet T-34 that's been giving German tankers nightmares since 41. On paper. In reality, they keep breaking down. The transmissions fail. The engines overheat. One Panzer commander told you his battalion lost 16 tanks before they even reached the start line. Not to enemy fire, just mechanical failure. 16 tanks sitting useless in fields because nobody back in Germany bothered to test them properly before shipping them to the front. But the offensive is happening anyway. Hitler wants it. Hitler needs it. A victory here might convince the world that Germany is still strong. Might convince the German people that all the sacrifice has been worth it. Might convince Hitler himself that he hasn't made a catastrophic mistake. So here you are, July 4th, the night before it all begins, sitting in a trench that smells like sweat and diesel and fear, watching the sun go down over wheat fields that tomorrow will be churned into mud and blood and burning metal. Eric is writing a letter. He does that sometimes. Never sends them, though. No mail service out here. He just writes and then folds the paper into his breast pocket with all the others. A stack of unsent words getting thicker every week. What are you telling her this time, you ask? That I love her, he says without looking up. That I think about her every night. That the sunflowers here look just like the ones in her mother's garden. There are no sunflowers anywhere near your position. But you don't say that. Let him have his poetry. Let him have something. The artillery starts at dawn. Not yours. Theirs. The Soviets have been watching and waiting, and now they're hitting the German assembly areas with everything they've got. Shells screaming overhead. Explosions walking across the landscape like the footsteps of angry gods. Men diving for cover. Tanks buttoning up. Chaos before the battle even properly begins. This isn't how it was supposed to go. You were supposed to have surprise. You were supposed to catch them off guard. Instead, they're catching you. But the offensive goes forward anyway because orders are orders and the Führer has spoken and nobody in high command has the courage to tell him this is insane. You go over the top at 0600, running, stumbling, trying to keep your head down while bullets crack past your ears. The wheat is tall enough to hide in, but it's also tall enough to hide the enemy, and every shadow could be death waiting to happen. A man next to you goes down. You don't know his name. One of the replacements. Arrived 3 days ago. Gone now. Just like that. A wet sound, and then nothing. Keep moving. Don't stop. Don't think. Just move. The Soviets have built defences here that defy comprehension. Trenches layered 8 deep, minefields stretching for kilometres, artillery positions camouflaged so well you don't see them until they're firing, anti-tank guns dug in with overlapping fields of fire, everything planned, everything prepared. They've had months to get ready and they've used every day. You heard later that they laid over 1 million mines around Kursk. 1 million. That's not a typo. 1 million explosive devices buried in the dirt waiting for German boots and German tank treads. The math on that is just, how do you even begin? The first day is bad. The second is worse. By the third you've stopped counting the dead because the numbers are too depressing. And anyway, there's no time. Sleep when you can, eat when there's food, shoot at anything that moves on the other side of the line. Try not to think about the fact that somewhere out there Soviet soldiers are doing exactly the same thing. Young men, scared men, men who probably didn't ask for this any more than you did. The tanks are where the real horror is. You're infantry, so you're not inside those steel coffins, but you're close enough to see what happens when they brew up, close enough to hear the screams. A T-34 round punches through the armour of a Panzer IV about 50 metres from your position, and the whole thing just erupts. Ammunition cooking off, fuel igniting. The hatches blow open and men come scrambling out on fire, burning alive, rolling in the dirt trying to extinguish flames that won't go out. One of them makes it maybe 10 steps before he collapses. The others don't make it at all. You throw up, right there in the trench. Nothing much comes out because you haven't eaten since yesterday, but your body tries anyway. Eric puts a hand on your shoulder and doesn't say anything because what is there to say? That night you can't sleep. Not because of the guns. You've gotten used to those somehow. But because every time you close your eyes you see that tanker burning, see him running, see him falling. Your bed right now is soft and safe and quiet. Try to hold on to that for a second. The difference between here and there, the thing about war that nobody prepares you for is the smell. Not just death. That's bad enough. But everything else too. Cordite, diesel, burning rubber, hot metal. Fear has a smell too, sharp and sour. A whole trench full of men who haven't bathed in weeks and are all terrified out of their minds. It gets into your clothes, your hair, your skin. You start to wonder if you'll ever smell normal again. One of the replacements, a kid named Jürgen from Bavaria. He keeps a photograph of his mother in his helmet liner, takes it out every night and stares at it like he's trying to memorize her face. He's 17, lied about his age to enlist, thought it would be an adventure, thought he'd be home by Christmas like the recruiting posters promised. He stops taking out the photograph after day 4. Something in his eyes goes flat. The adventure is over. Now it's just survival. The battle goes on for days, then weeks. German forces pushing forward, Soviets pushing back. Ground gained and lost and gained again. Villages changing hands 3 times in a single afternoon. The wheat fields you advance through on day 1 are flattened now, crushed under tank treads and artillery impacts until they're just mud. Everything is mud. Mud and smoke and the constant thunder of guns, somewhere in the middle of all this. July 12th, maybe. The tanks meet. Not your sector, but close enough that you can hear it, feel it. The ground shaking like an earthquake that won't stop. Hundreds of tanks converging on a place called Prokhorovka. German Panthers and Tigers against Soviet T-34s. Point-blank range in some cases. Tanks ramming into each other because the dust is so thick nobody can see more than a few meters. Picture it. Really picture it. A wheat field the size of a small city, golden stalks swaying in the July heat, and then 1,500 tanks pouring into that field from both sides, engines screaming, cannons firing, men burning. The largest armoured battle in human history. The wheat catches fire. The tanks keep coming. The dead pile up inside their machines like sardines in a burning can. You don't see it directly. You just hear the thunder and watch the smoke rise on the horizon and know that something terrible is happening over there. Something that will fill history books someday if anyone survives to write them. By July 15th, the offensive is stalling. The Germans have pushed maybe 30 kilometres into the Soviet lines at the deepest point. 30 kilometres. That's it. Thousands dead for 30 kilometres of churned-up farmland that doesn't matter strategically, and never did. And then the news comes down. The Allies have landed in Sicily. Italy is under threat. Hitler needs to pull forces from the Eastern Front to deal with this new crisis in the Mediterranean. Operation Citadel is over. Just like that. All those men, all that equipment, all those plans and preparations and promises of victory. Done. Cancelled. The great summer offensive that was supposed to change everything has changed nothing except the casualty lists. Your unit pulls back to defensive positions. The retreat isn't panicked, not yet. But there's something different in the air now. Something that feels like defeat even if nobody's willing to say the word out loud. Erich tears up his latest letter without sending it, crumples the paper and throws it in a fire pit and watches it burn. "What was that, you ask?" Lies, he says. Just lies. The summer drags on. The Soviets counterattack. German forces fall back, then fall back again. Cities that took weeks to capture in 41 are lost in days. The momentum has shifted and everyone can feel it, even if the propaganda broadcasts keep insisting that everything is fine and victory is just around the corner. You dig trenches, lay wire, set up machine gun positions. The offensive army has become a defensive one almost overnight. No more dreams of Moscow. No more dreams of the Caucasus oil fields. Now it's just holding on, trying to keep what you've got, trying not to lose any more ground than you have to. Feldwebel Kraus gets killed in August. Sniper. One shot through the throat. He was talking about his daughter's wedding, the one he was supposed to attend next spring. Mid-sentence and then just gone. Blood everywhere. The words dying in his mouth along with everything else. You don't cry. You've forgotten how. There's just this hollow space where the grief should be. A numbness that settles over everything like snow. Maybe that's what survival looks like now. Feeling nothing because feeling anything would break you. New orders come down in September. Fall back to the Dnieper River. Establish a defensive line. Hold at all costs. The Dnieper. That's deep in Ukraine. That's giving up everything gained in 42. That's admitting without actually admitting that the war in the East has turned against you. You march west. Away from Kursk, away from the graves of men you knew, away from the burned-out tanks and the flattened wheat fields and the smell of death that hangs over everything like a fog. The roads are clogged with retreating troops, trucks and horse-drawn wagons and men on foot all heading the same direction. West, away. The organisation that made the German army famous has started to fray at the edges. Units mixed together. Officers separated from their men. Supply columns that took wrong turns and ended up in Soviet-held territory. You pass through villages that are empty now. The civilians fled or were evacuated or something worse. Houses with doors hanging open, gardens going to seed, chickens wander in the streets with nobody to feed them, ghost towns where life used to happen and now doesn't. In one village you find an old woman sitting on her porch, just sitting there, watching the army retreat past her home. She doesn't run, doesn't hide, just watches with eyes that have seen too much already and can't be shocked by anything anymore. Eric gives her a piece of bread from his rations. She takes it without a word, nods once, goes back to watching. What's she waiting for, you ask him later. The end he says, same as all of us. Behind you the Soviets advance, slowly at first, then faster as they sense weakness. 3 million of them or more, an endless tide of men and machines pouring west. And you're just trying to stay ahead of it, 1 foot in front of the other, same as always, same as February, same as it's been since this whole nightmare started. Eric walks beside you, silent. His stack of unsent letters is gone now, burned or buried or lost somewhere in the retreat. He doesn't write anymore, doesn't talk much either, just marches. You both do. West toward Germany, west toward home, west toward whatever comes next. Because this isn't over, not even close. There's still 1944 to get through, and 45 after that. 2 more years of this. 2 more years of watching men die and cities burn and hope evaporate like morning dew. The war has changed. You can feel it in your bones. The confident army that swept across Europe in 39 and 40 is gone. What's left is something grimmer, something desperate. An army that's no longer fighting to win but fighting to survive, fighting to delay the inevitable, even if nobody will say that out loud either. Winter comes back, because of course it does. You'd almost forgotten what real cold feels like. The summer at Kursk burned that memory right out of you. But now it's November, and the temperature is dropping and your body remembers everything. The way your fingers go numb first, then your toes, then this deep ache in your joints that never quite goes away no matter how close to the fire you get. The Dnieper line was supposed to hold. That was the whole point of retreating this far. Fall back to a natural barrier, the river, dig in, make the Soviets bleed for every metre, buy time for the factories back home to build more tanks and planes, and all those wonder weapons the propaganda keeps promising. It held for about 3 weeks. The Soviets crossed in October, multiple points along the river. Some places they used boats, other places they just waited for the water to freeze and walked across. 3 million men don't stop for a river. They go around it, over it, through it if they have to. Now it's trench warfare again. Holes in the frozen ground, bunkers made of logs and dirt, machine gun nests covering approaches that the enemy will attack anyway because they have more men than you have bullets. Wilhelm, still here, 23 now. Your birthday passed somewhere in the chaos of the retreat, and you didn't even notice until Erich mentioned it 3 days later. "Happy birthday," he said. "You're still alive. That's more than most get. Some gift." The position you're holding now used to be a collective farm, Soviet, one of those big agricultural operations the communists set up after the revolution. The main building is rubble. The barn burned down months ago, but there's a root cellar that makes a decent command post, and the stone walls of the farmhouse foundation provide some cover from shrapnel. Jürgen is still with you, the 17-year-old from Bavaria who lied about his age. 18 now, officially old enough to die for his country. He's changed since Kursk, quieter, harder. The baby fat melted off his face, and what's left looks like it belongs to someone much older. Someone who's seen things no kid should see. He doesn't talk about his mother anymore, doesn't take out that photograph. You wonder if he lost it somewhere or if he just can't bear to look at it. The days blur together. Wake up before dawn, check the perimeter, eat whatever slop the field kitchen managed to produce, watch the tree line for movement, clean your weapon. Again, check your ammunition, count the rounds, always counting, never enough. Soviet artillery comes in waves, sometimes at predictable intervals, sometimes completely random. You learn to read the sounds, the whistle of incoming shells, the difference between one that's going to land close and one that's going to pass overhead. The guys who can't learn that difference don't last long. A direct hit takes out the bunker next to yours on December 3rd. 4 men, gone in a flash of light and a shower of frozen dirt. You help dig through the debris afterward looking for survivors. There aren't any, just pieces, just meat and cloth and shattered bone. You find a hand still gripping a rifle, the fingers frozen in place. You don't know whose hand it was. The dog tags are somewhere in the wreckage, but you can't find them, and after a while you stop looking. Christmas comes. 1943. Someone produces a bottle of schnapps from somewhere. God knows how. Contraband, probably. Traded for cigarettes or stolen from a supply depot, or maybe just carried all the way from Germany in someone's pack. You pass it around. Each man takes a small sip. Not enough to get drunk, just enough to feel something warm in your stomach for a few minutes. Just enough to pretend this is a celebration instead of a wake. Someone starts singing, Stille Nacht, Silent Night. The same song your mother used to sing when you were small, back when Christmas meant presents and cookies and staying up late by the fire, back when the world made sense. Other voices join in, rough and out of tune. Men who haven't sung anything in months. Men who've forgotten what joy sounds like. But they remember the words. Everyone remembers the words. The song drifts out across the frozen landscape, and somewhere in the darkness, maybe 100 meters away. The guns go quiet for a few minutes. Just silence and snow and the fading echo of a song about peace. It doesn't last. It never lasts. But for those few minutes you're not soldiers anymore. You're just men. Far from home. Missing the people you love. Wondering if you'll ever see them again. Your bed right now. Wherever you are. You can probably hear familiar sounds. A heater humming. Traffic outside. Maybe someone else breathing nearby. Wilhelm hears artillery and wind and the distant crack of rifle fire. Different soundtracks, different lives. Hold on to yours for a second, Jürgen cries. Doesn't try to hide it. Just sits there with tears freezing on his cheeks while the song fades into silence. Nobody says anything. Nobody judges him. They've all done the same at some point. Some of them are doing it right now. Eric doesn't drink, doesn't sing. He just sits there staring at the fire with those hollow eyes. His wife sent him a letter somehow. It arrived 3 days ago. First mail he's gotten in months. He read it once, then again, then folded it carefully and put it in his pocket and hasn't said a word since. What did she say, you ask? Nothing, he says. Everything. She wants to know when I'm coming home. What did you tell her? He looks at you, and you see it in his eyes. The truth neither of you wants to say out loud, that he doesn't know if he's coming home, that statistically speaking he probably isn't, that every day out here is borrowed time and the debt is coming due sooner or later. I told her spring, he says, finally. I told her I'd be home by spring. You both know that's a lie. But what else can you say? What else can any of them say? The men writing letters home, the officers filing reports, the generals moving pins on maps in warm headquarters, hundreds of kilometers from the front. Everyone's lying to everyone else because the truth is too heavy to carry. January brings fresh Soviet offensives. They never seem to stop. Every time you think you've stabilized a sector, they hit somewhere else. Probing attacks, breakthroughs, encirclements. The front line isn't a line anymore. It's a series of strong points connected by gaps that keep getting wider. Your unit gets moved 3 times in 2 weeks. Plug this hole. Reinforce that position. Fall back to the next defensive line because the last one collapsed. You stop unpacking your gear because there's no point. You'll just have to pack it again tomorrow. The replacements keep coming, but they're different now. Older or younger. Nothing in between. Men in their 40s who fought in the last war and thought they were done with all this. Boys who look like they should be in school. The men in their 20s, the prime fighting age. They're running out. Used up in 2.5 years of grinding combat on a front that stretches from the Baltic to the Black Sea. Someone jokes that soon they'll be drafting the cemetery residents. Nobody laughs. It's too close to the truth. One of the new guys is 53. 53. He was a baker in Munich, made strudel and pretzels and those little cookies his wife sold at the Christmas market. Now he's here, in a frozen trench in Ukraine, holding a rifle he barely knows how to use. He dies on his 4th day. Heart attack, not even enemy fire. Just his body giving out from the cold and the stress and the sheer impossibility of what they're asking him to do. You find him in the morning curled up in his sleeping position like he's just taking a nap. Eyes open, face peaceful, gone. Maybe he was the lucky one. February. The Soviets launched something big in the south. You hear about it through the rumour network that's more reliable than official communications at this point. A whole German corps surrounded near a place called Kursk. Tens of thousands of men trapped in a pocket that's shrinking by the hour. The relief force tries to break through. Tanks pushing through snow and mud and Soviet defensive lines. Getting close. Close enough that the men inside the pocket can hear the guns. Close enough to give them hope, but not close enough. The breakout order comes on a February night so cold that engines won't start and wounds freeze before they can bleed. The trapped men have to fight their way out on foot, through Soviet lines, through artillery barrages, through machine gun positions that turn the snow red for kilometers. Some of them make it, stumbling into friendly lines with frostbite and wounds and stories that don't make sense, talking about fields of bodies, about men freezing to death while they walked, about horses shot for food and then abandoned when there wasn't time to butcher them. Most don't make it. The numbers are vague because nobody really knows. But the whispers say 20,000 dead. Maybe more. Another Stalingrad. Smaller maybe. But the same basic story. Germans going in, not coming out. You meet one of the survivors, a sergeant from Saxony who walked 40 kilometers through enemy territory with a bullet in his thigh. His eyes have that look. The one you've seen on men who've been to the edge and somehow come back. Empty, distant. Like part of him is still out there in the snow with the ones who didn't make it. Don't ask, he says when you try to talk to him. Just don't ask. You don't. And somewhere in Berlin they're still talking about wonder weapons. Still promising that victory is just around the corner. Still demanding that every man fight to the last bullet for a cause that stopped making sense somewhere around the time the Sixth Army froze to death in the ruins of a city most of them couldn't even pronounce. Spring comes eventually, like it always does. The snow melts, the mud returns. The roads that were frozen solid become impassable rivers of muck that swallow trucks and horses and men who aren't careful where they step. You've been on the Eastern Front for over a year now, survived 2 winters, 3 major battles, countless smaller engagements that don't have names but still killed people you knew. You've watched friends die in ways you couldn't have imagined before the war. You've done things you'll never talk about, things that wake you up at night even now, even here. Even when you're so exhausted you can barely keep your eyes open. Eric is still alive. Jürgen is still alive. A handful of others from the original unit. But most of the faces around you are new now. Strangers who arrived last week or last month, and might be dead by next week or next month. You've stopped learning their names. It hurts less that way. The rumours in April are about an invasion. The Western Allies, the British and Americans, they're going to land somewhere in France. Everyone knows it's coming. The only question is when and where. Some guys think it might be a good thing. Let the Allies fight the Soviets. Let them see what it's like to face this endless wave of men and machines. Maybe they'll realise that Germany was right all along. Maybe they'll switch sides. You don't believe that. Not anymore. You don't believe much of anything anymore. You just put one foot in front of the other and try to survive until tomorrow. That's all any of you are doing now. Surviving, not winning, not even really fighting, just surviving. There's talk about being transferred west, to France, to the Atlantic Wall they've been building for years. Some of the men are excited about it. France means better food, better weather, an enemy that hasn't been hardened by 3 years of total war. But the transfers don't come. Not for your unit anyway. You're staying here, on the Eastern Front, where the real war is being fought, where men die by the tens of thousands in battles that barely make the newspapers back home. May arrives and the tension builds. Something is coming. Everyone can feel it. The Soviets are massing forces somewhere. The scouts report movement, trucks and tanks and artillery pieces flowing toward the front like water toward a drain. The generals know, the officers know, even the privates huddled in their trenches know. A storm is building, and when it breaks it's going to make Kursk look like a skirmish. The spring sun feels good on your face when you can find a moment to sit in it. Warm, almost peaceful. You close your eyes and for a second you can pretend you're somewhere else. A park in Hamburg maybe, or a cafe in Berlin. Somewhere with music and laughter and people who aren't trying to kill you. Then a shell lands somewhere nearby and the moment is gone, and you're back in the trench with mud on your boots and fear in your gut and the certain knowledge that things are about to get much worse. June is coming, and with it something that will make everything before it look like a warm-up. You don't know that yet. None of you do. You're just trying to make it through another day, another week, another month in this frozen hell that's finally starting to thaw. Eric sits next to you, skinnier than ever, his wedding ring loose on his finger now. He could take it off if he wanted to, but he doesn't. Think she's still waiting, he asks. Your wife? Yeah. You look at him, at the hollows under his eyes, the grey creeping into his hair, the tremor in his hands that wasn't there a year ago. I think she is, you say. I think she's counting the days. He nods, doesn't say anything else. Just sits there in the thin spring sunshine while somewhere to the east the guns keep rumbling. Always rumbling, never stopping. The front is quiet today, relatively anyway. No major attacks, no desperate last stands. Just the constant low-grade tension of knowing that somewhere out there millions of soldiers are waiting for the order to advance, waiting to finish what they started, and you're right in their way. Not for much longer, though. June is coming, and June will change everything. You just don't know it yet. June 6th, 1944. The news comes through in fragments, bits of radio chatter, officers huddling around maps, whispered conversations that spread through the trenches like ripples in water. The Allies have landed in France, Normandy. Thousands of ships, tens of thousands of men, pouring onto beaches that were supposed to be impregnable. The Atlantic wall that was going to throw them back into the sea, broken. For a moment, nobody knows what to say. The war just got a lot more complicated. Germany is fighting on 2 fronts now, 3 if you count Italy. The noose is tightening and everyone can feel it. Some of the men are almost relieved. Maybe the Western Allies will keep the Soviets busy. Maybe there'll be negotiations. Maybe this means the war is finally ending one way or another. You're not that optimistic. Neither is Eric. You've been out here too long to believe in easy endings, but D-Day isn't your problem, not directly. You're 1,000 kilometers from France, still on the Eastern Front, still watching the tree line, still counting ammunition, and wondering if tomorrow will be the day your luck runs out. 16 days later, your problem arrives. June 22nd, the 3rd anniversary of Operation Barbarossa, the day Germany invaded the Soviet Union 3 years ago. You don't think about the symbolism at the time. You're too busy dying. It starts with the artillery, not the usual harassment fire. Something different, something bigger. A rolling thunder that builds and builds until the ground itself is shaking, until the air is more metal than oxygen, until you can't hear anything except the screaming of shells and the screaming of men. The Soviets have named it Operation Bagration, after some general from the Napoleonic Wars, 166 divisions, 2.5 million soldiers, 6,000 tanks, 45,000 artillery pieces, all of it aimed at one stretch of the front. Your stretch, Army Group Centre. That's what they're targeting. The German forces holding the line in Belorussia, the forces that have been there since 41, the forces that include you. The bombardment goes on for hours. You press yourself into the dirt at the bottom of your trench and pray to a god you stopped believing in somewhere around Kursk. The earth jumps and bucks beneath you. Dirt rains down. Wood splinters. Men scream. Your ears are ringing. Have been ringing for so long you can't remember what silence sounds like. The world is vibration and noise and the taste of dirt in your mouth. You've bitten your tongue. Blood and soil mixed together. Everything tastes like the end of the world. A shell lands close. Too close. The blast wave hits you like a fist, knocks the breath out of your lungs. For a moment you think you're dead. Actually think it. This is it. This is how it ends. But you're still breathing, still conscious, still alive in a world that seems determined to kill you. When it finally stops, the world is different. Half the positions you knew are gone, cratered, obliterated. Men you talked to yesterday are scattered across the landscape in pieces too small to identify. The silence is almost worse than the noise, this ringing emptiness where the thunder used to be. And then you hear it. A new sound, low at first, growing, engines, and then the tanks come. T-34s, hundreds of them, thousands maybe, grinding forward in waves that seem endless. Behind them infantry, waves of infantry, more men than you've ever seen in one place, more men than should exist in the entire world. The German line doesn't bend, it shatters. Within hours your unit is surrounded. Not encircled in the traditional sense, just cut off. The Soviets have punched through on both sides of your position and kept going. You're an island now, a pocket of Germans in a sea of red. Jürgen takes a bullet in the shoulder during the first assault. Clean through. Missed the bone. He's lucky. If you can call getting shot lucky. You patch him up with supplies from a dead medic's kit and tell him to stay down. He doesn't stay down. Nobody can. There aren't enough men left to hold the line and let the wounded rest. Everyone fights. Everyone who can still hold a rifle fights. The orders come through on the radio. Contradictory, confusing. Hold your position. Fall back to the river. Hold at all costs. Retreat to the rally point. Nobody knows what's happening. The chain of command is breaking down in real time. You hold for 2 days. 2 days of constant attacks. 2 days of rationing ammunition because the supply lines are gone. 2 days of watching the perimeter shrink as positions fall one by one. On the third day, Erich gets hit. Mortar round. Close but not direct. The shrapnel catches him in the side. Below the ribs. He goes down and doesn't get up. You see it happen. 1 second he's next to you firing at something in the tree line. The next second there's a flash and a bang and he's on the ground. Not moving. No. No, no, no. You drag him into a shell crater while bullets crack overhead. His blood is warm on your hands. Too much blood. Way too much. It's spreading across his tunic, pooling in the mud beneath him. You try to stop it. Press your hands against the wound, but it's too big, too deep. The blood keeps coming, keeps soaking through your fingers no matter how hard you press. Wilhelm, he says. His voice is wrong, wet and weak. Shut up, you tell him. Save your strength. You're going to be fine. You both know you're lying. The wound is too deep, too messy. He needs a surgeon, a hospital. Things that don't exist anymore. Not here. Not for kilometers in any direction. His hand finds yours, grips it. His fingers are cold already. That's not a good sign. That's not a good sign at all. Tell her, he says. You're going to tell her yourself. He grabs your arm, squeezes with strength you didn't know he had left. His eyes are desperate, urgent. This is the most important thing, the only thing that matters anymore. Tell her I kept my promise. Tell her I'm coming home. His eyes find yours. And for a second he's not a soldier anymore. He's just a man, a husband, someone who wanted to make strudel and grow old and watch his children have children of their own. Someone who wrote letters he never sent because the words were all he had left. Spring, he whispers. I promised her spring. And then he's gone. Just like that. 1 breath, and then nothing. His hand goes slack. His eyes stay open, staring at the grey sky, staring at nothing. You sit there for a long time, longer than you should. Bullets snapping overhead, explosions in the distance, the world ending around you. But you can't move, can't think, can't do anything except hold the hand of a dead man who was supposed to make it home. Jürgen finds you, pulls you back to what's left of the defensive line. His shoulder is bleeding through the bandages, but he's still moving, still fighting. The kid from Bavaria who cried at Christmas has become something else now, something harder. We have to go, he says. The whole pocket is collapsing, everyone's retreating west. You look at Erich's body, you should bury him, should do something, but there's no time, no shovels, no anything. You take his wedding ring, slip it into your pocket. Proof for his wife, proof that he existed, that he mattered, that somewhere in this God-forsaken wasteland a good man died for nothing. Feel your own hands for a second, wherever you are. They're probably warm, clean, not covered in a friend's blood, not shaking from adrenaline and grief. Wilhelm's hands won't stop trembling for days. Then you run. The retreat is chaos. Thousands of men streaming west. trying to outrun the Soviet advance, trying to reach German lines that might not even exist anymore. No organization, no leadership, just survival. You don't run in a straight line. Can't. The Soviets are everywhere. You run and hide and run again, through forests that smell like pine and rot, across fields that used to be farms, along roads choked with the wreckage of an army that ceased to function. The roads are clogged with abandoned vehicles, tanks and trucks that ran out of fuel, artillery pieces that were blown up to keep them from falling into enemy hands, horses dead in their traces, men dead beside them. The smell is indescribable. Death and diesel and smoke, the perfume of total collapse. You stop to drink from a stream and the water tastes like ash. Everything tastes like ash now. Your boots are falling apart. The sole's coming loose. Every step is agony on feet that have been walking for days. But stopping means dying, so you keep going. Left foot, right foot. Don't think. Just move. At night you hide in barns and cellars and drainage ditches. Anywhere the planes can't see you. Anywhere the patrols might miss. You sleep in shifts. An hour here, 30 minutes there. Never enough. Always on edge. You find other survivors. Small groups of men as lost as you are. Some of them join you. Others drift away. The groups form and dissolve like cells dividing. Nobody's in command. Nobody knows where to go. West is the only direction. West is the only thing that matters. You pass through villages that are burning. Churches with their steeples collapsed. Farmhouses reduced to rubble. Civilians caught in the crossfire. Women and children and old men who weren't soldiers but died anyway because war doesn't care about innocence. In one village you see a woman standing in front of her burning house, just standing there, watching, her children beside her. They don't run, don't scream, just watch, like they've used up all their fear and all that's left is this numb acceptance. You want to help, want to stop. But there's nothing you can do, nothing anyone can do, so you keep walking. The Soviets are everywhere, or seem to be. Partisans behind the lines, tank columns cutting off retreat routes, aircraft strafing anything that moves on the roads. You learn to dive for cover at the sound of an engine, learn to travel at night when the planes can't see you, learn to trust nothing and no one except the man next to you. Jürgen stays close. The two of you move together, sleep in shifts, share rations, watch each other's backs. He doesn't talk much, neither do you. There's nothing to say. Days blur into weeks. You lose track of time, lose track of distance. The only direction that matters is west, away from the Soviets, towards something that might be safety if you can reach it before your legs give out. The numbers you hear later are staggering. Army Group Centre ceased to exist. 28 divisions destroyed. Not just defeated, destroyed. 400,000 German soldiers killed or captured. The biggest defeat in the history of the German army. Bigger than Stalingrad. Bigger than anything. The Soviets advanced 400 kilometres in a month. Pushed into Poland. Reached the outskirts of Warsaw. The whole Eastern Front buckled and bent and almost broke entirely. And you just kept walking. Eventually you reached German lines, what's left of them. A defensive position thrown together from scraps, survivors of a dozen different units, men who look as hollow-eyed and shell-shocked as you feel. An officer takes your name, assigns you to a reformed unit, hands you a rifle and some ammunition and points you at a trench. Back to it then. Same as always. Same as it's been since the beginning. Except now you're in Poland instead of Russia. Except now Eric is dead. Except now the war is obviously lost and everyone knows it, even if nobody will say it. You find your spot in the trench, settle in, look east toward the enemy you can't see but know is coming. Jürgen sits next to you. His shoulder is healing, mostly. It'll scar badly and he'll probably never have full range of motion again. But he's alive, which is more than most. You have something he says. You look down at your hands, at the ring you're still clutching. Gold band, tarnished now, worn smooth from years on a man's finger. I have to find her, you say. After the war, I have to tell her what happened. Jürgen doesn't say anything, just nods. The guns rumble in the distance, always rumbling, never stopping. The Soviets are regrouping, bringing up supplies, getting ready for the next push. It's August now, 1944. The war has maybe 9 months left, maybe less. You don't know that, can't know it. All you know is that tomorrow you'll wake up and do this again, and the day after, and the day after that, until you can't anymore. The front stabilizes, sort of. The Soviets have outrun their supply lines, need time to regroup, time to bring up reinforcements, time to prepare for the next push that will come soon enough. You use the pause to remember how to be human, to eat food that isn't scrounged from abandoned farmhouses, to sleep for more than an hour at a stretch, to let your body start to heal from wounds you hadn't even noticed getting. There's a new commanding officer, some captain who transferred from the West. He gives speeches about holding the line, about defending the fatherland, about final victory. The words wash over you like water off a stone. You've heard it all before. You don't believe any of it anymore. The replacements who arrive are younger than ever, 17, 16 in some cases. Children playing soldier in uniforms that don't fit. They look at you and Jürgen like you're ancient, like you're survivors of some lost civilization, which maybe you are. One of them asks you what it was like. The retreat, Bagration, the whole thing. You don't answer, can't answer. How do you explain watching your friend die in a shell crater? How do you describe the sound of an army coming apart at the seams? How do you put into words the experience of walking for days on no sleep and less food while the world burns around you? You just shake your head. The kid takes the hint, stops asking. At night you dream of Erich. See him standing in a wheat field with his wife, both of them smiling, the sun on their faces, a baby in her arms, the life he was supposed to have, the life that ended in a muddy crater somewhere in Belarusia. You wake up with a ring pressing into your palm. You've been clutching it in your sleep. The gold is warm from your body heat, warm like it was when you took it off his hand. Somewhere in Germany a baker's wife is still waiting for a letter, still counting the days until spring. She doesn't know yet. Nobody does. October, 1944. They're sending you home. Not home, not Hamburg where your mother lives, not the apartment you grew up in, but Germany. Actual Germany. Soil you haven't seen in almost 2 years. The reason isn't compassion, it's logistics. Your unit is being reformed again. Pulled off the line for refitting and reorganisation. A few weeks in the rear to absorb replacements and train them before getting thrown back into the meat grinder. You board a train heading west. Jürgen sits across from you. His shoulder has healed into a knot of scar tissue that aches when it rains. The trains don't run on schedule anymore. Partisan attacks, Allied bombing, fuel shortages. What should take a day takes 3. The first thing you notice is the sky. It's wrong. Even in the daytime there's this haze, this greyness that hangs over everything. And at night you see why. The cities are burning. You pass through what used to be Dresden. Or maybe it's somewhere else. It's hard to tell. The buildings that are still standing look like broken teeth, rubble everywhere, smoke rising from fires that nobody's bothering to put out because what's the point? People pick through the ruins, looking for food, looking for belongings, looking for bodies maybe. They don't look up when the train passes. They've stopped caring about trains. A woman stands at a street corner holding a photograph, just standing there, showing it to anyone who passes, looking for someone. Her husband, maybe. Her son. Someone who went into the rubble and didn't come out. Children play in bomb craters. Actually play. Like it's a game. Like the shattered world around them is normal. Because for them it is. This is all they've ever known. A country at war. A country dying. You think about the propaganda posters you saw before you shipped out. The ones showing happy families, strong workers, a Germany building toward a glorious future. That Germany doesn't exist anymore. Maybe it never did. Jürgen stares out the window, says nothing. What is there to say? You didn't know it was this bad. Out on the Eastern Front you heard about the bombing raids, heard the numbers, 1,000 planes, 2,000, entire cities flattened in a single night. But hearing about it isn't the same as seeing it. The train stops in a town you don't recognise, someplace in Silesia. Grey buildings, grey people, grey sky, everything grey. An officer meets you at the platform. Young guy. Too young. Maybe 20. He's got the look of someone who's never been near a front line. Clean uniform, pressed creases, boots that actually shine. Welcome to the training depot, he says. You'll be here for 2 weeks, maybe 3. Then back to the front. Great. The barracks are cold. Half the windows are broken and nobody's fixed them. You find a bunk and lie down and stare at the ceiling and try not to think about anything. The next morning they march you out to the training grounds, and that's when you see them. The Volkssturm. You've heard rumours. Hitler's new army. The People's Storm. Every male between 16 and 60 who isn't already in uniform. Shopkeepers. Teachers. Factory workers. Grandfathers. Children. But rumours don't prepare you for the reality. There's a man in the line who has to be 65 at least. White hair, stooped shoulders. He's wearing a business suit because nobody gave him a uniform. Just a black and red armband on his left sleeve that identifies him as a soldier now. A soldier of the Reich. He's holding a rifle that looks older than he is. Something from the last war maybe. Or the one before that. Next to him is a boy, 14, 15 at most, skinny, scared, wearing his father's coat because it's the only one he has. The sleeves hang past his wrists. The rifle in his hands is almost as tall as he is. They're supposed to defend Germany. These grandfathers and children. They're supposed to stop the Soviet army with hunting rifles and armbands and a half day of training. You watch them drill, if you can call it that. March, turn, present arms. Most of them don't know which way to turn. Some of them can barely lift their weapons. A sergeant is screaming at them. The same phrases you heard in basic training a lifetime ago. Faster, straighter, again. The old man in the business suit is sweating even though it's cold. The kid in his father's coat looks like he's about to cry. The weapons they carry are a museum collection. Mausers from the Great War. French rifles captured in 1940. Norwegian hunting guns. Czech pistols. Danish carbines. Nothing matches. Nothing works together. Half of them can't even find ammunition for what they're holding. One man has a Panzerfaust. The single-shot rocket launcher that's supposed to stop Soviet tanks. He's never fired one before. Nobody's taught him how. He's just supposed to figure it out when the tanks come rolling over the hill. Another has one of those spray can flamethrowers. the Einstoßflammenwerfer. Point and shoot. A half-second gout of fire and then it's empty. Then you're holding a useless metal tube while a tank rotates its turret toward you. These are the wonder weapons. These are the tools of final victory. Jürgen stands next to you, watching. They're going to die, he says quietly. All of them. You don't argue. There's nothing to argue about. You've seen what Soviet tanks do to infantry positions, what massed artillery does to men in the open. These grandfathers and children won't last 5 minutes against a real assault, but they're all that's left. The Wehrmacht has been bleeding out for 3 years. The men in their 20s are gone, used up. What remains is the sediment at the bottom of the barrel, the ones who were too young or too old or too essential to be conscripted before now. Now nobody's essential. Now everyone goes. Over the next few days you learn more. The Volkssturm isn't part of the regular army. It's controlled by the Nazi Party directly. The men don't answer to generals. They answer to local party officials, bureaucrats and true believers who've never fired a shot in anger, sending old men and children to hold the line against tanks. They don't have enough uniforms, don't have enough weapons. Some of them are carrying hunting rifles. Others have guns captured from France or Denmark or Norway. A few have these strange contraptions that look like oversized spray cans, single-shot flamethrowers, point and shoot and pray. One of the party officials gives a speech. You're required to attend. Something about the spirit of the German people, about final victory, about wonder weapons that will turn the tide any day now. The V2 rockets, he says, raining terror on London. The Me-262 jet fighters that will sweep the Allied bombers from the sky. Faster than anything the enemy has. Untouchable. Secret weapons. Miracle weapons. The tools of inevitable triumph. You've seen exactly one jet fighter since the war started. It flew over your position last month. Fast. Beautiful. Gone in seconds. One plane. Against thousands of Allied bombers that darken the sky every day. The math doesn't work, but nobody in Berlin seems to care about math anymore. You've heard it all before. Wonder weapons, always wonder weapons, always something coming that will change everything. Meanwhile, the front lines collapse and the cities burn and grandfathers learn how to shoot rifles in town squares across Germany. The old man in the business suit dies during training. Not from enemy fire, heart attack, just like the baker in the trench last winter. His body gives out trying to do what bodies that old aren't meant to do. They carry him away and continue the drill. There's no time for mourning, no time for anything except preparing for what's coming. You find the boy in his father's coat crying behind the barracks that night, sitting on the ground with his knees pulled up to his chest, sobbing. His name is Thomas. He's 14. His father died at Stalingrad. His older brother died in Normandy. He's the only male left in his family, and now he's been called up to defend the fatherland. I don't want to die, he says. I don't want to die. What do you tell him? What can you tell him? That everything will be fine, that he'll survive, that the war will end before he sees combat. You can't lie. Not about this. Not to a face that young. Stay behind the older men, you say, finally. Keep your head down. Don't volunteer for anything. Don't be brave. He looks at you with red eyes, snot running down his chin. Will that work? Sometimes you say, sometimes it works. You give him a cigarette even though he's too young to smoke. He coughs on the first drag, coughs on the second. By the third he's got it. Something else he's learned too young. If you're listening to this in bed somewhere, comfortable, safe. Think about Thomas for a second. 14 years old, already an orphan, already drafted, already crying behind a barracks because he knows what's coming. That was somebody's kid, somebody's baby brother, somebody's whole world. The war eats children now. That's what it's come to. The news from the front gets worse. Romania switched sides in August. Bulgaria followed. Hungary tried to negotiate with the Soviets, and the Germans occupied the country to stop them. The Allies that were supposed to stand with Germany are falling away one by one. The Soviets are in Poland now, have been since August. The front line that used to be 1,000 kilometers from the German border is now just a few hundred, getting closer every day. And in the west, the Americans and British are pushing toward the Rhine, through France, through Belgium, toward Germany from the other side. The noose is tightening. Everyone can feel it. Even the party officials giving speeches about final victory. You can see it in their eyes, the doubt they're trying to hide. 2 weeks pass, then 3. You train replacements during the day. Regular soldiers now, not Volkssturm, men who at least know which end of a rifle is dangerous. At night you lie awake and listen to the distant thunder of bombs falling somewhere to the west. Jürgen doesn't sleep well either. Neither does anyone. The dreams are too bad. The memories too fresh. You take out Eric's ring sometimes. Hold it in your palm. Think about his wife waiting in Munich. Think about the promise you made. If you survive, if you make it home, you'll find her. Tell her what happened. Give her the ring. It's the only thing that feels real anymore. The only thing that makes any of this mean anything. December comes. The training depot empties out. Men being sent east. Men being sent west. Everyone going somewhere. The great reshuffling of a dying army. New orders come down for your unit. Not east this time. West. To the Ardennes forest. Some kind of offensive being planned. Something big. Something that's supposed to change everything. You've heard that before too. The train west is even slower than the one that brought you here. Stops constantly. Engine trouble. Fuel shortages. Track damage from bombing raids. What should take hours takes days. You pass through more ruined cities. More people picking through rubble. More fires burning on the horizon. Thomas is on the train too. The 14-year-old in his father's coat. His Volkssturm unit is being sent to the same sector, thrown in with the regular troops to make up the numbers. He sits near you, doesn't talk much, just stares out the window at the country he's supposed to be defending. I wrote my mother a letter, he says finally. Yeah. Told her I loved her, that I was sorry for all the times I made her angry, that I'd try to come home. You think about Eric, about unsent letters and broken promises. That's good, you say. That's the right thing to do. The train keeps rolling west, toward the forest, toward whatever's waiting there. Outside the window the sky is grey. Always grey now. Even the snow that's starting to fall looks dirty, stained by smoke and ash and the dying light of a country that's burning itself alive. You try to sleep, but the train lurches too much, stops and starts, waits on sidings while other trains pass. Military trains heading to the front, hospital trains coming back, the wounded staring out through fogged windows with eyes that have seen too much. At one station you see a line of prisoners being marched along the platform, thin, skeletal, wearing striped uniforms that hang off their bodies like sacks. Camp prisoners being moved somewhere. You don't know where, don't want to know. One of them looks up as the train passes, makes eye contact for just a second. His eyes are empty, hollow, already dead even though his body keeps moving. You look away. Focus on the floor of the train car, on your boots, on anything except that face. The rumours about the camps have been circulating for years. What happens there? What's being done in Germany's name? You've tried not to think about it. Tried to tell yourself it's propaganda, exaggeration, lies spread by the enemy. But that face, those eyes, that's not propaganda. The train lurches forward again, keeps moving west. The Ardennes. That's where you're going. Some offensive that High Command has dreamed up. Some desperate gamble that's supposed to save everything. The plan is to punch through the American lines, drive to the port of Antwerp, cut the Allied armies in two, force them to negotiate. That's what the officers are saying anyway. One last throw of the dice. One final chance to turn the war around. They're calling it Operation Watch on the Rhine, a code name that's supposed to fool the Allies into thinking it's a defensive operation, as if names matter anymore, as if the Allies don't already know that Germany is out of options. You don't believe in desperate gambles anymore. You've seen too many of them fail. Kursk was supposed to change everything. Bagration was supposed to be held. Every operation has been the one that will finally turn the tide, and everyone has ended the same way, with retreat and death and hollow promises of victory next time. But you go anyway, because orders are orders, because there's nowhere else to go, because what else can you do except keep moving forward until you can't move anymore? Jürgen sleeps with his rifle across his lap. Thomas stares out the window. The boy has aged a decade in the week since you first saw him behind those barracks. The tears are gone now. Something harder has taken their place. The train rattles through the night toward whatever's waiting on the other side. December 16th is coming, the day the offensive begins, the day everything changes one more time. December 1944. The war has maybe 5 months left, maybe less. Nobody knows that yet. Nobody knows anything anymore. December 16th, 1944, 4:30 in the morning. The forest is dark, cold, snow on the ground, fog hanging in the trees like something alive. You can't see more than 20 meters in any direction, can barely see the man next to you. Then the guns open up. German guns this time. For once you're on the attacking side. 2,000 artillery pieces firing simultaneously along an 80-mile front. The noise is staggering. The ground shakes. Trees splinter. The fog itself seems to vibrate with the force of it. Somewhere out there American soldiers are dying, caught in their foxholes, in their bunkers, in their warm beds maybe. Nobody told them this was coming. Nobody knew. The Americans have gotten complacent. That's what the officers said. They think the war is almost over. Think Germany is finished. Think Christmas will be peaceful. They're about to learn otherwise. You go forward with the first wave. Through the trees, through the fog, through terrain that swallows sound and direction, until you're not sure which way is which. Just follow the man in front of you. Trust that someone knows where you're going. The snow is knee-deep in places. Every step is an effort. Your boots are soaked through within minutes. The cold bites at your toes, your fingers, your face. But you keep moving because stopping means dying, and you've gotten very good at not dying. The first Americans you encounter are already dead. Artillery got them. Bodies scattered around a destroyed position. Young faces, surprised faces. They never knew what hit them. One of them is still clutching a photograph. A woman. His wife, maybe. Girlfriend. Someone waiting back home in Ohio or Kansas or wherever Americans come from. You don't take the photograph. Don't take anything. Just step over the body and keep moving. You don't stop to look. Don't have time. Keep moving. The offensive has a timetable. reach the Meuse River in 3 days, Antwerp in a week, split the Allied armies in half and force them to negotiate. It sounds insane when you think about it. This ragged army that's been retreating for 2 years suddenly supposed to punch through and win the war. But the element of surprise is real. The Americans really didn't see this coming, and in war sometimes surprise is enough. The first day goes better than anyone expected. German forces punch through the American lines at multiple points. Whole units collapse, others surrender. Prisoners stream back toward the German rear in numbers you haven't seen since France in 40. You capture an American supply dump on the second day. Food, ammunition, coffee, real coffee. Not the ersatz garbage they've been serving in Germany for years. The men fall on it like wolves, stuffing their pockets, their packs, their mouths. There are crates of chocolate bars, American chocolate, sweet and rich and nothing like anything you've tasted in years. You eat 3 of them so fast you nearly make yourself sick. A sergeant nearby is stuffing his pockets with cigarettes. Lucky Strikes, the American kind. If we'd known they had this much, we'd have attacked sooner, he says. Maybe we should just surrender to their supply depot. Nobody laughs, but a few men smile. First smiles you've seen in weeks. Jürgen is grinning, actually grinning. First time you've seen that in months. Maybe they were right, he says. Maybe this actually works. You don't answer. You've learned not to hope. Hope is dangerous. Hope gets you killed. Thomas is somewhere behind you. His Volkssturm unit got attached to a regular infantry company. Last you saw he was still alive, still wearing his father's coat, still clutching that rifle like it might save him. The fog holds through the second day. And the third. The weather that should be grounding Allied aircraft is keeping them blind. No fighter bombers screaming down on the columns, no strafing runs on the supply trucks, just grey sky and white snow and German forces advancing for the first time in what feels like forever. You push through villages with names you can't pronounce, Belgian places, French places. The civilians hide in their cellars, peer out through shuttered windows. They've been liberated once already. Now the Germans are back. They don't know what to think. Neither do you. A crossroads town called St. Vith holds out longer than it should. American defenders dug in and refusing to move. The advance has to flow around them, go forward and leave the pocket to be dealt with later. That's when the problems start. The roads are clogged. Too many vehicles trying to use too few routes. Tanks stuck behind supply trucks. Artillery behind tanks. Everything backing up like blood in a blocked artery. And the fuel. God. The fuel. The tanks need fuel to advance. The trucks carrying the fuel can't get through because the tanks are blocking the roads. And there isn't enough fuel anyway. There was never enough fuel. The whole offensive was planned on the assumption that they'd capture American supply dumps along the way. Some units do capture fuel. Not enough. Never enough. You hear stories of panzer columns stopping dead in their tracks, out of gas, crews abandoning their vehicles and continuing on foot because there's no other choice. The weather breaks on the 23rd, blue sky, clear visibility, and suddenly the air is full of American planes, Thunderbolts and Mustangs and bombers, hundreds of them, thousands maybe, raining death on anything that moves. You've never seen so many aircraft in your life. The sky is black with them, like locusts, like a plague sent from an angry god. The Luftwaffe is supposed to be up there too, supposed to be protecting the ground forces, providing cover. But the Luftwaffe is a ghost now. Fuel shortages, pilot shortages, aircraft shortages. What few planes they have left can't challenge the armada overhead. The column you're with gets caught in the open. No cover, no anti-aircraft, just men and vehicles on a road that's become a shooting gallery. The first plane comes in low and fast, guns blazing, bullets chewing up the snow and the dirt and the men who can't get out of the way fast enough. A truck explodes, then another, bodies flying through the air like rag dolls. You dive into a ditch, press yourself into the frozen mud, hear the roar of engines overhead, the chatter of machine guns, the screams of men who weren't fast enough. A bomb hits somewhere close. The concussion picks you up and slams you back down. Your ears are ringing, blood in your mouth, dirt in your eyes. For a moment you're back at Kursk, back at Bagration, back in every nightmare you've had for the last 2 years. Another pass, more explosions, more screaming. A man crawls past you with his legs gone, just crawling, leaving a red trail in the snow. He doesn't make it far. It goes on for hours, wave after wave. They've been waiting for this, stockpiling bombs and bullets and rage. Now they're letting it all loose on the army that dared to surprise them. When it finally stops, you crawl out of the ditch and look around at what's left. Half the column is burning, vehicles twisted and blackened, bodies everywhere. The snow that was white this morning is red now, stained with blood and oil and the contents of men who stopped existing somewhere in the last few hours. Jürgen is alive, somehow. A cut on his forehead, bleeding into his eyes but otherwise intact. You find Thomas an hour later, sitting against a tree staring at nothing. His unit took a direct hit. Most of them are gone. The men he trained with, the grandfathers in business suits, the other children in their fathers' coats, scattered across a Belgian field in pieces too small to identify. He doesn't speak, doesn't cry. Just sits there with that 1,000-yard stare you've seen on too many faces. The look of someone who's seen too much and shut down to cope with it. You get him moving. Forward. Always forward. The offensive is still going. Somewhere. The orders haven't changed even if everything else has. Christmas comes. You spend it in a bombed-out farmhouse eating cold rations and listening to artillery in the distance. Someone finds a bottle of wine in the cellar. You pass it around. Nobody talks about Christmas. Nobody talks about home. There's nothing to say. The offensive is dying. Everyone can feel it. The Americans have regrouped. Reinforcements pouring in from all directions. The bulge in their lines that gave this battle its name is being squeezed from both sides. German units that pushed forward are now fighting to avoid being cut off. Bastogne. That's the town everyone keeps talking about. A crossroads that controls half the roads in the region. American paratroopers surrounded there, holding out against everything the Germans throw at them. Surrender the Germans demand. Nuts the Americans reply. Whatever that means, they hold. Day after day they hold, and while they hold, the rest of the American army gathers its strength and prepares to push back. You're retreating again by the first week of January, back through the same villages you advanced through 2 weeks ago, past the same burned-out vehicles, the same frozen bodies, the same civilians hiding in their cellars wondering when this will finally end. The fuel situation is catastrophic now. Tanks abandoned by the roadside. Artillery pieces blown up to keep them from falling into enemy hands. Men marching on foot because there's nothing left to ride. You pass a Panther tank sitting in a field. Pristine, not a scratch on it. Just empty. Out of gas. A 50-ton paperweight that was supposed to win the war. The crew is long gone, walked east looking for friendly lines. Whether they found them you'll never know. Thomas walks beside you now, silent, mechanical. He hasn't spoken more than 10 words since Christmas. The boy who cried behind the barracks, the boy who wrote his mother a letter. He's gone now. What's left is something else, something empty. You know that look. You've seen it in the mirror. Wherever you're lying right now, take a breath, a real one, deep, slow. Feel your chest rise and fall, that simple automatic thing your body does without asking. Wilhelm hasn't taken a breath like that in months. Every breath out here is shallow, tight, waiting for something to kill you. The Ardennes Offensive cost Germany everything, every tank, every plane, every trained soldier they had left. All of it thrown into this desperate gamble that was supposed to change the war. That was supposed to prove Germany could still win. It proved nothing except that Hitler had finally lost touch with reality completely. You hear later that he blamed the generals. Of course he did. Always the generals. Never the strategy. Never the lack of fuel. Never the basic mathematics that said this was impossible from the start. Never the fact that you can't win a war by wishing really hard. The general staff had warned him, had told him the fuel wasn't there, the men weren't there, the ammunition wasn't there. He didn't listen. He never listened. Just screamed about willpower and destiny and the inevitable triumph of the German spirit. Willpower doesn't fill gas tanks. Destiny doesn't stop bullets. The German spirit died somewhere around Stalingrad and nobody told Hitler. 100,000 German casualties, 800 tanks lost, most of them to mechanical failure or fuel shortages rather than enemy fire. The entire Western strategic reserve gone, wasted, spent on a fantasy that was never going to work, and now there's nothing left. Nothing between the Allies and Germany except tired men with empty rifles and the desperate hope that maybe, something will change. Nothing will change. You know that now. Have known it for a while. The war is a runaway train heading for a cliff, and everyone on board knows it's going to crash, but nobody can figure out how to stop it. You cross back into Germany in mid-January. Not triumphant, not victorious. Just surviving. Same as always. The fatherland looks worse than when you left it. More ruins, more refugees, more hollow-eyed people who've stopped believing in anything except the next meal. Jürgen doesn't talk much anymore either. None of you do. What is there to say? The war is obviously lost, has been lost for months, maybe years. But it keeps going because nobody knows how to stop it. Because stopping means admitting defeat. And admitting defeat means facing what comes after. You think about Eric's ring, still in your pocket, still waiting. His wife still doesn't know, still counting the days until spring. Spring. That's 2 months away, maybe 3. Can the war last that long? Can you last that long? You don't know. Can't know. All you know is that tomorrow you'll wake up and do this again. March somewhere. Fight something. Watch more men die for a cause that stopped making sense somewhere around the time the first bomb fell. The Eastern Front is collapsing. You hear the rumours. The Soviets launched a massive offensive while you were busy losing in the Ardennes. Punched through everything. Reached the Oder River, 60 kilometres from Berlin. 60 kilometres? That's nothing. That's a day's drive. That's close enough that you could walk there in a week if you were determined. Berlin, the capital, the heart of the Reich, the place where all of this started. Now it's about to end there too. That's where you're going next. Back east. Back to face the enemy you've been running from for 2 years. Back to the beginning. The train is cold. The windows are broken. Snow blows in through the gaps. You huddle in your coat and try to sleep. and try not to think about what's waiting on the other side. The tracks have been bombed so many times that the train spends more time stopped than moving, waiting for repairs, waiting for fuel, waiting for someone to figure out if the bridge ahead is still standing. You pass through Leipzig, or what used to be Leipzig. The station is rubble. The city beyond it is rubble. Everything is rubble now. Germany has become a country of ruins. Refugees crowd the platforms, civilians fleeing west, away from the Soviets, away from whatever's coming, women with children, old people with bundles, the desperate and the terrified all mixed together in a tide of human misery. One woman tries to get on the train, a military train, soldiers only. An officer pushes her back onto the platform. She screams something. Her child is crying. The train starts moving and you watch them shrink into the distance. 2 more faces in the crowd of the damned. Thomas sits across from you, staring at nothing. His father's coat is stained with things you don't want to think about. He's 15 now. Birthday passed somewhere in the chaos. Nobody noticed. Nobody celebrated. He hasn't spoken since the Ardennes. Not a word. Just follows orders. Marches where they tell him to march. Eats when there's food. Sleeps when there's time. A ghost wearing a boy's face. You've seen it before. Shell shock. Combat fatigue. Whatever you want to call it. The mind's way of protecting itself from things it can't process. You hope he comes back someday. You hope the boy inside that empty shell is just hiding, waiting for it to be safe to come out again. You're not sure it will ever be safe again. Jürgen sleeps, or pretends to. His eyes move behind his closed lids. Bad dreams. Everyone has them now. The price of surviving what you've survived. The train rattles east, toward the Oder, toward Berlin, toward whatever's left. Outside the window the sky is grey, the snow is grey, the whole world is grey. Even your thoughts have gone grey, colourless, empty, just existing from one moment to the next without hope or fear or anything at all. Happy birthday, kid. Welcome to the end of the world. The Oder River, February 1945. This is it, the last line. Behind you is Berlin, 60 kilometres of flat German countryside and then the capital, the heart of the Reich, everything the war has been about. In front of you is the river, frozen solid in places, and beyond that, them, the Soviets, millions of them, waiting. The defences here are pathetic. Trenches dug by old men and children, machine gun nests made of rubble, anti-tank obstacles that a determined driver could push aside with his bumper. Nothing like the fortifications you faced at Kursk. Nothing like what a real defensive line should look like. But it's all there is. So you dig in and wait. The trench is shallow, barely deep enough to stand in. Water seeps up from the bottom. Frozen slush that soaks through your boots and never quite dries. You've got frostbite on 3 toes. Can't feel them anymore. Probably won't ever feel them again. The rations stopped coming regularly weeks ago. You eat what you can find, what you can steal, what you can trade for. An old woman in a farmhouse gave you half a loaf of bread in exchange for not shooting her cow. Fair trade. The cow would have died anyway when the Soviets came. At night the cold is unbearable. You huddle together for warmth, bodies pressed against bodies, no dignity left, no privacy, just survival, the same survival instinct that's kept you alive for 3 years now. The only thing that still works, Wilhelm, 24 now. Though you stopped counting birthdays somewhere around the time counting stopped mattering. Your hands shake sometimes, not from cold, from something else. something that doesn't have a name but lives in the space between sleep and waking. Jürgen is somewhere down the line, different company now. The army keeps shuffling men around, filling gaps, plugging holes, moving pieces on a board that's already lost. You see him sometimes. Wave. Don't talk much. There's nothing left to say. Thomas is still with you, still silent, still wearing his father's coat even though it's falling apart now, held together with scraps of wire and strips of cloth. He follows orders, does what he's told, eats when there's food, sleeps when there's time. The boy is gone. What's left is a machine shaped like a person. The Soviets probe the defences daily. Artillery barrages, small unit attacks, testing for weaknesses, looking for the soft spots. They're in no hurry. They know what's coming. They've waited years for this. A few more weeks won't matter. The ice on the river is thick enough to walk on, maybe thick enough to drive tanks on. The engineers try to break it. Explosives, power saws, anything they can think of. It barely makes a dent. The river heals itself overnight, fresh ice filling in the gaps. Nature working against you now along with everything else. There's an airfield nearby, planes still flying, not many but some, tank hunters mostly, diving on Soviet armour trying to slow the inevitable. You watch them take off in the morning, count how many come back in the evening. The numbers never match. One day a pilot limps in on one engine, his plane trailing smoke. He makes it to the strip, barely, crashes on landing. They pull him from the wreckage with his leg torn open, metal fragments everywhere. He keeps asking if he got the tank. Did he get the tank? Yes, someone tells him. You got it. 13 kills today. Lucky 13. He passes out smiling. You don't know if he ever wakes up. The hangings start in February. Deserters, cowards, traitors to the Reich. That's what the signs say. The ones they nail to the chests of the men dangling from lampposts and trees, and any vertical surface that will hold a rope. Most of them are just kids, 18, 17, younger in some cases. Boys who looked at the Eastern Front and decided they'd rather take their chances running than die in a hole for a cause that stopped making sense years ago. They didn't make it far. The military police are everywhere now, checking papers, asking questions, looking for anyone who can't explain exactly where they're going and why. The Feldgendarmerie, chain dogs, that's what the soldiers call them, because of the metal gorgets they wear around their necks. Dogs on chains hunting other dogs who slipped their leashes. Anyone who can't explain themselves ends up swinging from a rope with a sign around their neck. You see a squad of them execute a man in the street. Right there. No trial, no questions. Just a rope over a lamppost and a man who's probably just trying to find food for his family. The sign says, deserter. Maybe he was. Maybe he wasn't. Doesn't matter now. The message is clear. There is no escape. There is no surrender. There is only fighting and dying or running and dying. Those are your options. Choose wisely. The radio broadcasts talk about something called Werewolf, a partisan network, German civilians who will continue fighting even after the army falls, sabotage, assassination, guerrilla warfare against the occupiers, every man, woman and child a soldier for the Reich until final victory or final death. It sounds insane. It is insane, but they're serious. They're actually serious. The same people who hang that boy for running are planning to turn grandmothers into insurgents, pour encourager les autres. That's what the French say, to encourage the others, to remind everyone watching what happens when you stop believing in final victory. You pass one of them on your way to the latrine. A boy, maybe 16, face purple, tongue swollen, eyes bulging, a sign that says coward in big black letters. He's wearing a Volkssturm armband, one of the people's soldiers, one of the grandfathers and children who were supposed to save Germany. He probably ran after his first artillery barrage, probably didn't even make it a kilometre before the chain dogs caught him. Thomas looks at him. First time he's looked at anything in weeks. Something flickers in his eyes. Recognition maybe. Understanding. That could be us, you realise. That could be any of you. The only difference between the boy on the rope and the boys in the trenches is luck. Nothing else. Just luck. And luck runs out eventually. For everyone. March comes. The weather warms slightly. The ice on the Oder starts to thin. The Soviet pressure increases. They're getting ready. Everyone knows it. The big push is coming. News filters down from headquarters. Confusing. Contradictory. The Führer has a plan. The Führer will save us. New orders are coming. Hold at all costs. Hold what? With what? You've got maybe 50 rounds of ammunition left. The machine gun in your section hasn't worked properly in days. Half the men in your unit are Volkssturm with hunting rifles and 2 weeks of training. But you hold. Because what else are you going to do? Run away and end up like the boy on the lamppost. Surrender and hope the Soviets are feeling merciful. Neither option seems likely to end well. Then the Nero decree comes down. March 19th. An order from the Führer himself. Destroy everything. Every factory, every bridge, every rail line, every warehouse, every water treatment plant, every electrical station, everything that the enemy might use when they conquer Germany, which they will. Soon. The logic is insane. If Germany can't win, then Germany will cease to exist. Not just the government, not just the army, the country itself, the people, the infrastructure that keeps them alive, all of it destroyed by German hands before the Allies can claim it. If the war is lost, then the people are lost too. That's what Hitler said. No point saving anything for people too weak to fight for their fatherland. Let them starve in the ruins. Let them freeze in the rubble. They deserve it for failing him. The man who sent millions to die in foreign countries now wants to kill the ones who stayed home too. The final solution applied to everyone. You hear the officers talking about it. Some of them are horrified, their faces white, their hands shaking. This is their country too. Their families live here. Their children will inherit whatever's left. Others just shrug. What difference does it make now? The bombs have already destroyed most of it. The Soviets will destroy the rest. What's one more order in a war that's been nothing but orders since the beginning? The local party officials start organising demolition teams, bridges wired with explosives, factory equipment smashed with sledgehammers, grain stores soaked with gasoline and set on fire, train tracks torn up, power lines cut, water mains broken, anything that might help anyone survive the coming occupation, gone. An old farmer watches them burn his grain silo. 40 years of work, his life savings in wheat and rye and barley, going up in flames because a madman in a bunker decided that if he can't have Germany, then nobody can. The farmer doesn't cry, just stands there watching, face blank, beyond grief, beyond anything. Think about that for a second. Wherever you are right now, whatever you're lying on, someone worked their whole life to build something, and someone else burned it down just to make sure nobody could have it. That's what the end looks like, not with a bang, with arson, with spite. Some of the engineers refuse, quietly. They don't demolish the bridges they're supposed to demolish, don't destroy the equipment they're supposed to destroy. Small acts of defiance that might save a few lives when this is all over. Albert Speer, the armaments minister, the man in charge of implementing the decree. They say he's sabotaging his own orders, telling local officials to ignore the destruction orders, preserving what he can for the people who will have to rebuild. If any of them get caught, they'll hang like the deserters, signs around their necks calling them traitors. But they do it anyway, because someone has to, because the war is lost and there's no point destroying what little is left. You don't know if any of them get caught. You're too busy trying to survive. April comes. The Soviets launch their offensive. 2.5 million men, 6,000 tanks, 40,000 artillery pieces. The largest concentration of firepower in human history aimed directly at Berlin. The bombardment starts before dawn, makes Kursk look like target practice, makes Bagration look like a warm-up. The earth itself seems to be coming apart. Fire and thunder and the end of the world. You press yourself into the bottom of your trench and feel the universe shake. Shells landing so close the concussions lift you off the ground. Dirt and debris raining down. Men screaming. Men dying. Men simply ceasing to exist in flashes of light and noise. The Oder line holds for about 3 days. Then it doesn't. The breakthrough comes north of your position. Soviet tanks pouring through a gap that shouldn't exist, shouldn't be possible. The defensive line that was supposed to hold until reinforcements arrived, until the wonder weapons saved everyone, until something, anything, gone in 3 days, like it was never there at all. You watch the tanks from your position, endless columns of T-34s rolling west. Behind them trucks full of infantry, behind them artillery, behind them more tanks. An army so vast it takes hours to pass, hours of watching the end of everything you fought for crawl past on treads and wheels. Nobody gives the order to counterattack. There's nothing to counterattack with. Nobody gives the order to hold. There's nothing to hold. Nobody gives any orders at all for a while. The chain of command has broken down completely. Then finally, fall back, regroup, establish new defensive positions, the same orders you've been hearing for 2 years, the same retreat you've been fighting since Kursk, but this time there's nowhere to retreat to. Behind you is Berlin, and that's where you're going whether you like it or not. The roads are chaos. Military vehicles and civilian refugees all mixed together. Soldiers and children and old women with handcarts, full of whatever they could grab before running. Everyone moving in the same direction, west, away from the Soviets, towards something that might be safety. You pass a family on the road, mother, father, 3 children, pushing a cart piled with furniture and clothing and a bird cage with a yellow canary inside. The bird is singing. Actually singing. In the middle of all this death and destruction. A small yellow bird singing in a cage on a road to nowhere. The father sees you looking, shrugs. She likes the movement, he says. Thinks we're going somewhere nice. You don't know what to say to that. So you don't say anything. Just keep walking. Soviet aircraft strafe the columns. You've seen it before. Too many times. Dive for cover. Wait for it to pass. Count the bodies. Keep moving. The family with the bird cage isn't so lucky. You don't look back. Can't look back. Looking back is how you stop moving, and stopping is how you die. Thomas moves with you. Still silent. Still mechanical. But something has changed in his eyes. Not fear exactly. Something else. Resignation maybe. Or acceptance. The look of someone who knows how this ends and has stopped fighting it. You find Jürgen at a crossroads outside a village you can't name. His unit got chewed up in the breakthrough. He's one of maybe a dozen survivors, wounded in the arm, wrapped in a dirty bandage that's already soaking through. Getting the band back together, he says. His voice is flat. No humour in it. Just words. Looks like it, you say. Berlin. Yeah. The three of you walk together. Same as before. Same as always. Except now the war is measured in days instead of months. Hours instead of weeks. Everything happening too fast to process. The city is visible on the horizon. Smoke rising from a dozen fires. The sound of artillery even from here. A distant thunder that never stops. You think about Eric's ring. Still in your pocket. Heavy now. Heavier than it should be. You made a promise. Find his wife. Tell her what happened. Give her the ring. Munich is in the other direction. Behind the Allied lines now, probably. Even if you survive Berlin, you might never be able to keep that promise. But you'll try. That's all you can do. Try to survive. Try to find her. Try to make something mean something in a war that stopped meaning anything a long time ago. The road to Berlin stretches ahead. Cratered. Bombed. Lined with the wreckage of an army and a nation that bet everything on a madman's dream and lost. Burned out vehicles every few meters. Bodies in the ditches. Some of them soldiers. Some of them civilians. Some of them too damaged to tell the difference. The smell is everywhere now. Death and smoke and something else. Desperation, maybe. Fear made physical. You pass a Volkssturm unit marching the other direction, toward the front. Old men and boys with their armbands and their hunting rifles, marching toward the enemy you're running from. Some of them look scared. Others look resigned. A few look almost eager. True believers to the end. They'll be dead by tomorrow. Most of them anyway. You don't say that. Don't say anything. Just keep walking. Thomas walks on your left, Jürgen on your right. Three men who started as strangers and became whatever this is. Brothers, maybe, or something like it. Bound together by shared horror and the stubborn refusal to die. You think about Eric's ring again, the weight of it in your pocket, the promise you made in a shell crater 2 years ago that feels like 200. Find his wife. Tell her what happened. Tell her he kept his promise. Tell her he was coming home. Spring, he whispered. I promised her spring. It's April now. Spring has arrived. Flowers blooming in the ruins. Life continuing despite everything. Eric should be home by now. Should be holding his wife. Should be starting the family he dreamed about. Instead, he's buried somewhere in Belarusia. If he's buried at all. And you're walking toward Berlin with his ring in your pocket and no way to keep the promise you made. But you'll try. If you survive what's coming, if there's anything left when it's over, you'll find her. Somehow. Not yet, though. Not today. Berlin is waiting. The last battle, the end of everything. You keep walking. Berlin, late April 1945. The city is dying. You can hear it, feel it, smell it in every breath you take. Brick dust and cordite and rotting flesh. The perfume of the end times. You're in a cellar somewhere in the eastern suburbs, or what used to be suburbs. Now it's just rubble with occasional walls, streets that don't exist anymore. Buildings reduced to teeth jutting from smoking gums. The Soviets are a few blocks away. You can hear their tanks rumbling through the ruins, their artillery pounding what's left of the German positions, their soldiers shouting in a language you don't understand but have learned to fear. Wilhelm, still alive, somehow. 24 years old and 1,000 years tired. Jürgen is with you. His arm wound has gone septic. Red lines spreading from the bandage toward his shoulder. He needs a hospital, medicine, things that don't exist in Berlin anymore, things that might not exist anywhere in Germany anymore. He knows it too. You can see it in his eyes, the acceptance, the understanding that this is probably where his story ends. Thomas is still here, still silent, still mechanical. But he's fighting now. That's something. Whatever broke in him in the Ardennes has put itself back together into something functional. Not the boy who cried behind the barracks, not the eager child who lied about his age to serve his country. Something else, something harder. He'll survive this, you think. If anyone survives this, he will. He's too young to die, too stubborn, too empty of everything that makes dying easy. The orders stopped making sense days ago. Hold this street, fall back to that building, counterattack toward the bridge. There is no street, there is no building, there is no bridge, just ruins and more ruins stretching in every direction. You fight anyway, because what else is there to do? Because stopping means dying. Because after 3 years of war your body has forgotten how to do anything except fight and run and hide. House to house, room to room, sometimes hand to hand when the ammunition runs out and all you have left is a rifle butt and the desperate strength of a man who doesn't want to die. You clear a building, or try to, kick in a door, throw in a grenade if you have one, rush in shooting if you don't. Every room is a potential death trap, every corner an ambush waiting to happen. A Soviet soldier comes around a corner and you shoot him. He falls. Another one behind him. You shoot that one too. A third throws a grenade. You dive behind a pile of rubble. The explosion showers you with brick fragments and dust. Your ears ring. Your hands shake. You keep fighting. In one apartment you find a family hiding in a closet. Mother, father, 2 children. Civilians caught in the crossfire. They scream when they see you. Think you're going to kill them. You're not. You're barely able to kill anyone anymore. Your hands are shaking so badly you can barely aim. Go, you tell them. Basement. Stay there until it's over. They don't move. Too scared. Too shocked. The mother is clutching her children like she can protect them from bullets with her body. Maybe she can. Mothers are capable of impossible things. You leave them there. Keep moving. Don't look back. Looking back is how you die. Looking back is how you remember you're human, and humans weren't made for this. This is what it's come to. The master race. The 1,000-year Reich. Fighting in cellars and stairwells for a city that's already lost. Dying in 1s and 2s for a leader who's hiding in a bunker somewhere refusing to face what he's done. April 25th. The Soviets reach the Reichstag, the Parliament building, the symbol of German democracy that Hitler burned 30 years ago and never bothered to rebuild. Now they're raising their flag over the ruins. You're not there to see it. You're 3 kilometers away, crouched in the shell of what used to be an apartment building, watching Jürgen get worse by the hour. His fever is climbing. His words don't make sense anymore. He's talking to people who aren't there. His mother, his sister, a girl he knew in school. Fragments of a life that existed before all this. Before the war ate everything. Stay with me, you tell him. We're almost through. Just hold on. He looks at you with eyes that don't quite focus. Is it spring? He asks. I promised someone spring. That's Eric's line, Eric's promise. But you don't correct him. Just nod. It's spring, you say. April, almost May. Good, he says. That's good. He dies that night. Quiet. Peaceful almost. His breathing just stops. One moment he's there and the next he's not. You sit with him for a while. Don't know how long. The fighting continues somewhere outside. Shells falling, guns firing, the city tearing itself apart. Thomas finds you in the morning. Doesn't say anything. Just looks at Jürgen's body. At you. At the way you're clutching your rifle like it's the only thing keeping you upright. "We have to move," he says. First words he's spoken in weeks. His voice is rusty, hoarse, but it's there. "Yeah," you say. "Yeah. Okay." You don't bury Jürgen. Can't. No time, no tools, no ground that isn't concrete or rubble. You just leave him there in the apartment building with the dust settling around him like a blanket. Another body in a city of bodies, another statistic in a war of statistics. April 30th. The rumour spreads through the lines like wildfire. The Führer is dead, shot himself in his bunker, took the coward's way out and left everyone else to face the consequences. Some of the men weep, true believers to the end. Others just shrug. What difference does it make now? He was never going to save them, was never going to pull off some miracle victory, was never anything more than a madman with a gift for speeches and a talent for convincing people to die for him. The fighting continues anyway. Nobody's given the order to stop. Nobody knows who's in charge anymore, so you fight, because that's all you know how to do. May 1st, 2nd, 3rd, the Soviet noose tightens, block by block, building by building, room by room. The defenders get pushed back and back and back until there's nowhere left to go. You surrender on May 4th, not dramatically, not heroically, just. Walk out of a cellar with your hands up and hope the Soviet soldier pointing a gun at you is feeling merciful. He is, or maybe he's just tired of killing. Either way, he doesn't shoot, just gestures with his rifle. That way, march. Thomas surrenders with you, the two of you, all that's left of everyone you knew, walking into captivity with a crowd of other hollow-eyed men who look exactly like you feel. The Soviets line you up, take your weapons, your watches, anything valuable. You keep Eric's ring hidden in your boot. They don't find it. Small miracle. May 7th. Germany surrenders, unconditionally. The war is over. Has been over for months, really. Years, maybe. But now it's official. The shooting stops. The dying stops. Everything just stops. You're in a holding camp east of Berlin when you hear the news. A pen full of German prisoners waiting to find out what happens next. Whether you'll be shot or shipped east or released or left to rot. Nobody knows. Nobody tells you anything. The war is over, an officer says. Some Soviet political commissar addressing the crowd. Your Reich is finished. Your Führer is dead. Germany as you knew it no longer exists. He says it like it's supposed to hurt, like you're supposed to care. Maybe some of the men do. You just feel empty, hollowed out, a shell where a person used to be. The next few weeks blur together. Processing, interrogation, more processing, questions you don't know the answers to, forms you don't understand. Soviet bureaucracy grinding forward as relentlessly as Soviet tanks. Thomas gets separated from you somewhere in the chaos. Different camps, different processing centres. You never see him again. Hope he made it. Hope the kid who survived the Ardennes and Berlin found his way home eventually. But you'll never know. They release you in July. Walk out the gates of the camp with nothing but the clothes on your back and a pair of worn-out boots that hold a dead man's wedding ring. Germany is unrecognisable. The country you left 3 years ago doesn't exist anymore. Cities reduced to rubble. People living in cellars and basements. Refugees everywhere. Nobody knows where anyone is. Nobody knows anything except that somehow life continues even after the world ends. You walk for weeks, eating what you can find, sleeping where you can, asking anyone who might know, "Have you seen this woman?" A baker's wife from Munich. Her name was. You don't actually know her name. Eric never told you. Just called her his wife. His love. His reason for surviving. It takes you 3 months to find her. She's living in the ruins of Munich now, what's left of it, in a cellar that used to be a bakery before the bombs came, before the war took everything. Her name is Anna. She knows before you say anything, sees it in your face, in the ring you're holding out to her, in the way you can't quite meet her eyes. He made me promise you say, to find you, to tell you what happened, to give you this. She takes the ring, holds it in her palm, stares at it for a long time. He said he'd be home by spring, she says. Her voice is steady, hollow. She's been practicing this moment, preparing for it, the same way soldiers prepare for battle, knowing it's coming, dreading it, getting ready anyway. He tried, you say. He wanted to, more than anything. He talked about you every day, wrote you letters even when there was no way to send them. He loved you. Until the very end, he loved you. You tell her about the letters, the ones he wrote but never sent, the ones he burned in the retreat from Kursk, the ones that existed only in his head toward the end. Words and words and words for a woman he wasn't sure he'd ever see again. You tell her about the way he talked about her, about the life they were going to have, the bakery they'd run together, the children they'd raise, the garden he wanted to plant, tomatoes. He was very specific about the tomatoes. She almost smiles at that. Almost. He was a good man, she says. Better than he knew. Better than the war deserved. Yeah, you say. He was. She invites you to stay the night. There's room in the cellar, a blanket she can spare. It's more than you've had in months. You accept. That night you lie awake in the ruins of the bakery, listening to the city settle around you. The sounds of people surviving, cooking, talking, crying, living. The sounds of a world that refused to end even when everything was telling it to. Anna cries in the room next door. Quiet sob she's trying to muffle so you won't hear. You hear anyway. Lie there in the darkness and let her grieve. Let yourself grieve too. For Eric, for Jürgen, for Thomas and the baker from Munich and the pilot who crashed on the airstrip and all the other men who became ghosts somewhere along the way. The war took so much from everyone, from the whole damn world. But not everything, not this moment, not the ring on Anna's finger or the promise you kept or the simple fact that you're still breathing. That has to mean something, even if you don't know what yet. In the morning she makes you a Zatz coffee from some hidden supply. It tastes like burnt acorns. Best thing you've had in months. Thank you, she says, for keeping your promise, for coming all this way, for not forgetting him. You don't know what to say, so you just stand there, two strangers connected by a dead man and a war that destroyed everything it touched. Spring, she says. He promised me spring. You think about all the springs that came and went while you were fighting. The ones at Kursk, at Bagration, at the Ardennes, at Berlin. Springs that meant nothing except longer days and warmer nights to keep dying in. This spring is different. The war is over. The killing has stopped. Somewhere beneath the rubble and the ash and the grief, life is starting again. Flowers pushing through cracks in the concrete. Birds singing in the ruins. The world remembering how to exist without burning. Eric would have loved this spring, would have spent it in the garden he always talked about, teaching his children to plant vegetables, growing old with the woman he loved. He didn't get that. None of them did. The millions who died for a madman's dream, the boys who became soldiers, the soldiers who became corpses, the corpses that became statistics in history books, but you survived. Somehow, against all odds, through Stalingrad and Kursk and Bagration and the Bulge and Berlin, through everything the war could throw at you. And now you're here, standing in the ruins of a bakery in Munich, watching a widow hold her husband's ring, keeping a promise you made in a shell crater 2 years ago. That means something. You're not sure what, but something. You leave Munich a few days later, head north, toward Hamburg, toward whatever's left of home, toward a life you'll have to rebuild from nothing like everyone else. The ring stays with Anna, where it belongs, the promise kept, the dead honoured, the war finally over. You walk through the ruined country that was supposed to last 1,000 years and didn't make it to 13. Past the burned cities and the empty villages and the graveyards that stretch from here to Moscow. Past all the monuments to human cruelty and human stubbornness and the terrible things people do when they believe they're right. And somehow, despite everything, you keep going, one foot in front of the other, same as always, same as it's been since the beginning, except now there's no enemy behind you, no orders to follow, no war to fight, just a long road home, and the rest of your life to figure out what any of it meant. The summer sun is warm on your face, the first warmth that's felt good in years. You close your eyes for a moment, let it sink in. Let yourself feel something other than fear for the first time in longer than you can remember. You're alive, against all odds, against all reason. You're alive, and tonight, wherever you are, safe in your bed with your pillow beneath your head and your blanket pulled up close, you're alive too, warm and safe and far away from all the horrors that men do to each other. The war ended 80 years ago. The soldiers who fought it are almost all gone now, but their stories remain, their struggles and their sacrifices and their desperate hope that somehow things could be different. Maybe they can. Maybe that's the whole point. Sleep now. Let the story settle. Let the weight of it sink into your bones where it belongs. Tomorrow is another day, another chance, another spring, just like Eric promised.